Hello everyone. Thank you for joining in again today. Last time we spoke about educational design, and today I decided to get more practical, to learn and to discuss together with you how we can implement educational design in practice, because according to our research, most of the teachers in the Russian Federation design their own tasks. And I don't know about you, but for me, one of the most challenging aspects of designing a task is not finding the right material, the right language material. It's not even arranging the task, because I think you, like most of us, have no problem with being creative. The main challenge that I face is designing the right task rubric, and there are many reasons for that. One of the reasons is that a printed task that I give to my students is something that they are going to take home. And if I make a mistake in the task rubric, then first of all, they are probably going to learn it not in the right way. And secondly, that's also written proof of my mistakes, which I don't like having, and I don't think you do. That is why today we're going to talk about formulating task rubrics. This is one of the webinars in the series, and today it's the fourth webinar where we discuss different aspects of communication, of professional communication of the English language teachers, both inside and outside their classrooms. The goals for us today are the following. We're going to learn about task rubrics as a writing genre. Yes, task rubric is one of the writing genres. I know we can all write letters and essays and probably letters of complaint and many other genres of writing that we were introduced to during our university studies. I doubt that many of us have been introduced to such a genre as task rubric, which also has its compositional rules, which also has its certain form, and which also has its certain language. We will learn to formulate our own task rubrics in English, and we will practice improving the existing task rubrics. So if you participate well today, you'll earn your 4th star. But what is a task rubric? I'm almost certain that while looking at the title of this particular workshop, many of you thought, like, come on, what is it all about? And why do we need task rubrics? Well, first let's find out what a task rubric is. And here I brought a dictionary, right? So we'll flip through the pages, open it to page 1238, and there we find the word rubric. Rubric, a set of instructions, etc., especially on an exam paper, and usually printed in a different style or color. Read, follow the rubric carefully, is the example given in this particular dictionary. Now, I don't think it's very informative, and personally, I don't know about you guys, but I cannot gain sufficient information out of this description. So let's talk about the characteristics of a task. The task, not the task rubric, the task overall, as we discussed last time on Friday, has its aim, it has its certain objectives, it has its communicative situation or setting. Where is the situation going to happen? It has its genre, its length, its target language or languages, its time limit, and its assessment format. All of those are characteristics of a task. The parts of the task are a stimulus, the input. It can be text input, audio input, or visual input. It has its rubric. The rubric can be characterized by the text type, its length, its time and resources, expected answer, or the output that we expect, assessment criteria if the task is assessed, and sometimes it also includes an example. Now let's see if you can find all of those task elements in a task that I have designed for you, in an IELTS task. IELTS is one of the international English language exams. And can we please press twice backwards? While I was exercising in using the marker, I got some marks left on my presentation. So if we can erase them, that'd be nice. Sorry guys, bear with me for a moment. We probably need to get out of full screen, and then we need to press back twice. Yes, that's what we need to do. Great. Delete. Sorry about this. Go back into the presentation format. And no, a little bit to the left. Yes, like this. Thank you. Can we go full screen again, please? Thank you. Waiting. So, as I said, we are now going to look at an IELTS task. IELTS is an international English language exam. We're going to look at a writing task from this exam. And in this particular writing task, I'll ask you to find the different elements of the task itself. We'll look at the, yeah, I think I got it, thank you. We'll look at the input, the rubric, the output, the criteria, and the example. Today in the workshop, I will not be able to, you will not always be able to write your answers in the chat, because sometimes the amount of information that you have to type would be too much, too large. That is why this time I would ask you to take a sheet of paper or to look at the presentation in front of you, and to jot down what you think is the input, the rubric, the expected output, if there are any criteria, and if there is any example given. So I'm going to set a 3-minute time limit for that. Take a sheet of paper or open file on your computer and tell me what do you think is what do you think here is the target input, what is the rubric, the output, criteria, and if there is any example given here. Once you have done this, please write done in the chat. So, setting the limit, 3 minutes, set and start. I think I should repeat the task one more time because there are some people joining. Hi everyone, if you have just joined, I have asked you to find the task elements in the task in front of you. I have asked you to find the input, the rubric, the output, the criteria, and the example. And to tell me if they are there. Okay. And it's time. Alright guys, let's look at it together. First, we do not have all of the elements in here. The first question was whether or not all of the elements of the task can be seen in this particular task, and the answer is no. We have input, right? And we have two types of input. We have the visual input in here, right? Remember that input can be visual, and this is visual input. And another type of input that we have here is verbal input, right? So that's this part. The pie chart shows the amount of money that a children's charity located in the USA spent and received in 1 year, 2016. This is the input. In other words, input is the language and the information that our students can build their answer on. So here, they are probably going to build their answer on the language that was given, right? The pie chart shows the amount of money, etc. And also they can use the information in the pie chart to include into their answers, right? And in this particular exam, in IELTS, one of the tasks that they are going to have is translating the visual information into verbal information. We don't have this task in the Russian state exam yet, but we do sometimes have very similar tasks in different language Olympiads, where you have to translate this information into text. For example, here they'd be looking at the language such as 2/3 or 3/4 or less than half of something. So this is the target language, and here the students need to compare the information in the two pie charts and report what they can see, summarize information. Here in this particular task, the visual input can be criticized because, as you can see, it's in the same color, so it's not always easy to see how the two charts are different. On the other hand, I think that it's done on purpose, so that different categories are the same color in both pie charts, but still the difference between purple here or lilac, I don't exactly know what this color is, or dark blue, the light blue in here and the medium light blue in here, it's very tiny. So in terms of visualization, this is probably not the best way to give visual input. Now, the next part that we have here, this is also verbal input. Revenue sources and expenditures of a USA charity in 1 year 2016 is also verbal input. Now, let's look at the rubric itself. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task, is the rubric. And this rubric gives us a very important point, which is the time limit, right? 20 minutes, time limit. Good if you have it in front of you as a student. The second part of the rubric is write at least 150 words. Write at least 150 words, which is also part of the rubric. But 150 words also characterizes the output to some extent, right? So the result must be at least 150 words. Another part of the rubric that also characterizes the output is summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So here, yes, this is the rubric as well, but this part of the rubric also characterizes the target output. So comparisons must be there, and main features, right? These two parts of the task are the output. Now in this task there are no criteria, so no criteria, and there is no example given, which are probably a disadvantage of this task. But overall, you can see that this task rubric is quite large, and due to the fact that it's an exam, it's supposed that when students are preparing for the exam, they familiarize themselves with examples of similar tasks. So that is why this example task is not included in the task. Another reason is that the example would pretty much lead the students in a certain direction, which is not what the IELTS designers have in mind when they design this task. So these are the components of the task. Let's look at one more example. So now I want you to look at this task and to tell me whether we have all the necessary components of the task in here. So in the chat, please write input plus rubric plus output minus criteria plus, or input plus rubric plus output minus criteria minus. You see the start, there are two dialects. I've taken it from the forward course book. And there are two dialects, and here is the task. Look at this task containing those dialects and the instruction in the lower right corner, and tell me, do we have all the necessary elements of this task, of the task present in this particular example? I'll give you again 3 minutes to complete it. Ready, steady, go. Okay, guys. Now, some of you, like Ellie and Veronica, said that there was no input. Oh, by the way, first of all, thank you very much to those of you who are participating. I can see people who are with us already for the fourth time, and that's great. We are progressing, we are building on the skills that we developed in the previous webinars. That's amazing. That's how I planned it as a course. So thank you for your participation. It's really important to me. Several people said that there is no input. I might disagree with you. First of all, there is definitely some visual input, right? This is input. 2 pictures are visual input. And when we select that input, this is a very challenging task. The visual input should be safe for the children of the age. It should be appropriate. It shouldn't break any Russian laws or international standards of teaching the language. That is why there certainly is some visual input. And there is also verbal input. The dialogues, they are verbal input. Why is this important to think about this verbal input when you design a task? Because if this input is too challenging for the student, they'll never be able to complete the task. They'll never be able to fill in the gaps, the activity that the authors of the book want them to perform here. That's why it's super important to think about the input. And what's more, we can also see the tiny bits here. Do you know how much it costs to get in? Do you happen to know where the toilets are? Do you think I could have a look at your... And there are 2 or 3 more. They are also target input. So you see you have 3 different elements of input here. You have the visual input, you have the textual input, and you have the input in here. Also, there is one more type of input that is indirectly mentioned in the task rubric. If you look at this part of the instruction, listen and check. There is also audio input that we'll use for assessment of the task later. But overall, there are 3 different types of input. Visual input, verbal input, and audio input. Which is good, because the more our lives now are very much multimedia, right? We live in the world where we constantly perceive information through all of the channels, and this is just how it's done in the book, right? So you have audio, video, visual, and text. So yes, 3 different types of input. Input is a plus. Most of you said that there is a rubric, and that's right. The rubric is pretty short here. It's complete dialogues A to D with sentences 1 to 4. Then listen and check. Unlike the spoken instructions that we discussed yesterday, not yesterday, a couple of days ago, where we said that it's good if you use could you or would you where it's important that your instructions are polite. In task rubrics, it's important to be concise. It's important to tell the essence of the task. So in here, it's totally fine to use the imperatives, such as complete. Later on, I will show you a list of task rubrics for different types of tasks, and my team, my university research team, we designed this list through analyzing a lot of task rubrics from different books, books written by the native speakers of English, books written by joint teams, where we looked at how people formulate tasks. Now, one of the criteria of a good task rubric is that it's as short as it can be to tell the student what they should do. So there is a rubric. The rubric is here. I'll just draw an arrow. Complete dialogues A to D with sentences 1 to 4. Then listen and check. Output. there is no mention of the target output, but overall it's clear that the output is this text with no gaps. So this is the output, right? The text with no gap, the target output. And criteria, most of you, actually all of you, said that there are no criteria. Olga, Ali, Veronica, Tatiana, I can't see Tatiana's, I think I saw Tatiana's answer somewhere. Yeah, so you said that there are no criteria. Actually, there are criteria. Because when you see this, then listen and check. Check means that there is the answer can either be right or it can be wrong. And the criterion here is whether we have managed to guess what the authors of the book wanted to write there, or whether the answer that we have given correspond with the answers actually used in the dialogue. And because this is not a short answer task, because we don't come up with our own answers here, but because we just fit certain phrases into the text, it's a yes or no answer. So it's either right or wrong. That is why, if you had to use this task with a more advanced group of students, I would strongly advise to not to give them the possible answers first, but to ask them to complete the dialogue themselves, and only after that offer them the answers that are in the book. This can be done easily by simply covering the answers given by a sheet of paper, a notebook, or a palm. So yes, indirectly, criteria are also there. Okay, now in here, can I now ask you to find the input, the rubrics, the criteria, the output, and the example in this section of forward 8. I'll give you, this is the task that I don't want you to do in the chat. I want you only to write whether you managed to find all of the components or just some of them in the chat. That will also show me that you have finished doing the task. But if you have some sheet of paper in front of you or a file where you can take notes, do it in that file. I'll be drawing on the screen again so that you can see the answers. But can you please do the working somewhere in your own notebook or notes or paper or a digital file, and then tell me whether all of the components are there or just some of the or some of the components are missing. So once again, this is a workshop. That's why there are tasks all the time. A 3-minute time limit. Look at the task. Write your answers into the chat. Ready, steady, go. And I'll choose a different timer this time because I'm already tired of this one. Clear. A different timer. Let's use the snails. All right, guys. 3 minutes. Find the elements of the task. Find the elements of the task in the photo of the book that I'm showing you. Write in the chat whether you have managed to find all of the elements. 30 seconds left. 30 seconds left. Thank you very much for your participation. To all of you who have already written their answers. That includes Nadezhda and Irina and Veronica. And that's it. Now, guys, I know that some of you might be willing to ask me a question. Why am I giving you all of those tasks in a webinar? Because a traditional webinar is very different. I'm supposed to be telling you and things and giving you information, which is how it's usually done. But not only do we know that whenever you learn something in an active manner, you learn it better, there is actually neurological evidence of the efficiency of doing things together and discussing things. The evidence suggests that we as humans are the only species in the world who have a capacity for joint attention. We actually enjoy when we share attention, our attention object, with somebody else. You might remember yourself when you were a kid, didn't you like to listen to your favorite music together with somebody? Or I mean, I still do, or discuss things and share things. So this capacity, this mental capacity to enjoy shared attention is one of our unique characteristics as human beings. And research shows that we learn much better when we enjoy shared attention. And that's what I'm trying to do in here. Through these tasks, I'm trying to make sure we all enjoy some shared attention, and that we actually know that there are a lot of people watching this webinar together with us, discussing tasks with us. So please feel free to share your opinions as well, and your ideas and questions. If you have any questions during the webinar, it's totally fine to ask in the chat. I'd be glad to answer those questions. And remember this when you do it with your own students. Remember that as human beings, we actually enjoy to be sharing our attention with sharing the object of attention with other people. That is why there is a project at Cambridge University at the moment called Think Together. That's where they teach students to discuss things together with their partners, so that it's not that much of a challenge for them to do pair work or group work when they grow up. Because if you don't develop this skill and this habit with students, then it's no surprise that when they grow up, they find it hard to be working in a group. Now, back to the task. Let's start with the input. The input, and in here, if we can please have the sheet of paper that I'm using. The word input is a synonym of the word stimulus. So in some of the tasks, in some of the exam tasks, for example, instead of the word input, you can have the word stimulus. And here is my challenge to you. What's the plural form of the word stimulus? So if you have already completed the task, write the plural form of the word stimulus into the chat. What do we have here? In terms of the stimulus or the input, first of all, the thing that you get right away, we have visuals, a visual stimulus and a visual input bit. That is this bit, right? Quiz time, which tunes us into a certain work mode, the parts that are in different color. And if you see this, then right away you know the topic, right? Even before you read the task. That's also a very good reading technique that you can give your students, skimming the text by analyzing the visual elements and having this large bit in bold is a combination of textual and visual. Stimuli, Leboeuf is right. The plural of stimulus is stimuli. With an I at the end. The rubric. Work in pairs, do you know these jobs? Use your dictionary. to check the meaning of any new words. Think back, that's also a rubric. In past, compare the jobs above, which ones in your opinion are, right? That's also part of the rubric. Listen, read, and do the personality test. Check your score on page 114. And here, please do note that whenever we have page 114, dialogue A, no article in front of them. That's one of the, when we analyze the task rubrics designed by trainee teachers, one of the most common errors is that people have the definite article in front of page 114, dialogue A, task 5. No article, right, on page 14. The rubric, yeah, these are the parts of the rubric. There are no criteria. Here, a hint to criteria is this bit. Do you agree with the results? Here, the criterion is our internal perception of what is right and wrong and whether the text is characterizing us in the right way. That is the criterion. So, do you agree with the results is an element of assessment, is an element of self-assessment, and it's a pretty useful one because we can only discuss whether we agree or disagree with the results of the test if we have actually managed to understand the text of the test and the legend of the text. So if we have actually managed to understand the key of the test and we know whether the test is characterizing us in the right way. And there is one example given for this task. So here we can actually observe almost all elements of the task with stimulus. Could you please make sure that I'm sharing my computer now? I want to go back to this, and I also want to show people what level, whether this word is ranked according to the CFR. So stimulus, here is the word, and the plural is stimuli, as you can see. And this is a C2 level word. So last time I was showing how you can define the difficulty level of words. So the word stimulus is a C2 level word. Hope if there is nothing else useful in this workshop for you, at least you have learned a new word. And another word, rubric, that we started with. Is rubric graded in here? No, the word rubric is not graded, which is surprising, which means that the word stimulus is more often used than the word rubric. Because they only graded the most widely used English words. I think this is partly due to the fact that the word rubric is specific. It's specific to our target language use domain, to the language of education. And if we check the word input, input is a B2 level word, which is more general. But the word input can be used in many different settings and contexts. All right, so this was the word stimulus that I asked you about. Well done, all of you who guessed this correctly, and well done, all of you who have just learned a new word. I don't think that this mouse is. Oh no, the white mouse. Sorry, I confused them. Mice. Okay, now last time, remember we played Hangman with you. I personally judged this experience as positive. That's why I decided we can play it again today. What are the three main functions of a task rubric? In here you have three nouns, so can you please give me letters? And if we have these letters in the words in here, remember last time I made a mistake. There were not enough gaps in the words that I have thrown, so I decided to digitalize it and to prepare better this time. So that's why you have all of the gaps already in the presentation. Give me letters and we'll try to guess the 3 words, the 3 main functions of a task rubric. Give me letters, let's play Hangman. Yeah, the weird silence is caused by the fact that there is a certain time gap between my instruction and the time when I can see your answers and on my screen. We've done everything we could in order to make it go faster. Oh, P. Good. No P in here. So I can draw a hat for Julia, and A. Yes, there is an A. And another A in here. And no A's in here. The next letter, N. Yes, there is an N in here. It's horrifically difficult to be writing with the thing, but it's a lot of fun for my students. They can see this way that not only their handwriting is sometimes terrible, but mine as well. An N in here, this is an N. And yes, these are, no, this doesn't look like a proper N. No, it does. Next letter, V. Yes, I think you have already guessed this word. V in here. And next letter, T. Yes, there is a T in here. In here. And here. Next letter suggested is D. No D's. Ta-da! Next letter suggested A already in there. Sha is definitely not there. What should that? Oh, that was probably the O. 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 Yes, there is an O. One O over here. One O over here, and one O over here. And F. No F. And I. Yes, the I is here, but we also have another I in here, in here, in here, and that's it. Letter O already there, F already missed. Letter R, yes, there is an R in here. Letter O already there, E already, oh yes, E. E in here, and in here. No N's, no E's in there. T-I-O, and yes, motivation, you have already guessed the second word. Motivation. Oh, I forgot just to put this T in there. R already there. Instruction. Yes, Svetlana, you have guessed the word correctly. Instruction is the third word. But what is the first word? Engagement. Brilliant, Veronica. Yes, we have guessed all the 3 words. The 3 functions are engagement, motivation, and instruction. A good task rubric offers some engagement and motivation and instructs on what actually has to be done. And with think about different elements, then we can actually see that the components of the task that we have already discussed, the parts, they have to deal either with instruction or with engagement or with motivation. So, for example, the length and the time limit is the instruction bit. The communicative setting and the aim is the engagement bit. And criteria and target input is the motivational bit. So here is the same printout from Forward. Engagement is offered by the input that we have here, right? So it's interesting. What are they discussing? Motivation by the fact that we have certain gaps and the fact that we can check it later, right? And instruction is in the task rubric. What we actually need to do, we need to complete dialogues with sentences. That's a very important bit. Yeah, I know that it's better to give one word, Irina. I just thought that you guys are too advanced to do it word by word, and I also wanted to save the time. The disadvantage was that I had to copy all of the letters into different words, and that helped you to guess the word faster, but I actually wanted you to guess this word as quickly as you can. So yes, Irina, I do agree that it's better to focus on one word, and if the target input is language, then it's definitely better to give it word by word. I fully agree with you. Now let's look at the sample task rubrics. As I told you, my research group, we analyzed 5 books for different age groups, starting at preschool and ending at business English courses for adults. And now I would like to share the task rubrics with you that refer to school age. I'll read them, and then you can take notes as I go through them. The presentation will also be available to you. But this also hints towards, this is also a hint towards how many task types there are with different language skills. And another thing that I would like to draw your attention to is that even though I have qualified these tasks as reading or listening or writing, most of them combine different skills, because that's how real-life communication is. Just right now, you're reading through my slides. You're listening to my voice. Sometimes you're also writing your answers, and probably if you are taking this course together with other colleagues, you are discussing it with them. So our learning is multimodal. Our life is multimodal. That is why the tasks that are offered are also very often multimodal. As I said, imperatives are used in task rubrics for the reason that they are shorter and clearer. Read and color, read and say yes or no, read and check, read and circle the best answer. Special point of attention here. In the Russian language, whenever we have a multiple choice task, we use the word variant. Can I please have the screen of my computer right now? The problem is that this word is not used in this particular meaning in the English language. So if we go to the dictionary and see the definition of the word variant is something that is slightly different from other similar things, and the examples that you get here, there are many colas on the market now, all variants on original drink. So all other than the original drink. And there are 4 variants of malaria, all transmitted to humans by a particular family of mosquitoes. And yeah, just so that you can see, there are no more definitions of the word variant as a noun. That is why we do not use the word variant in the English language when students have to choose the best answer. Use the word answer instead. If you are interested about other words like this one, other false friends that teachers from Russia tend to use when they are when they are giving instructions and designing their own tasks, watch the webinar about accuracy of classroom language use again. There I specifically focused on the words that are that may be misused. So yes, read and circle the best answer. Read, think and answer. Match the words and numbers. Read the text with, match, keyword here, the task word. Not combine. Match is the right word. Read the text with the paintings. Answer the questions. Read the text with the paintings. Answer the questions. Read and complete the table. Complete is also the word that is very often underused in the task rubrics designed by the Russian teachers. Read and order the pictures. Read and match the text with the pictures. Match with. Read and complete the table. Read and remember. Read and complete the text. Read and choose the best name for the text. With a partner, guess the meaning of the highlighted words and phrases. Cover the text. Can you remember? Right? Can you remember is the motivational bit in here. Task rubrics for writing. Correct the wrong sentences. Write about your, and then the topic. Now answer the questions. Write sentences about your friends. Tell the class. Find and write the words. Yeah, you see, in here with tell the class, yes, we shorten it because it's tell the class about your friends, tell your friend's story to your class. But this task rubric is intentionally shortened. Find and write the words, complete the graph and the sentences, draw, label and write about your dream house. Label in here is another word that we found was underused. Write a description to find the pet thief's dad. Write a shopping list, complete the story. Write descriptions about the other animals. Choose an animal, make an information page for a class book. Right, make is another word that is very often used. Where is it? Here. Make is another word that is very often used in task rubrics for writing. Write a letter to a friend, follow the stages and use something, the instruction on page 11. Use expressions from the target language section and modifiers on page 23 to write 5 opinions about films and film stars. Then read the sentences to the class, and before handing in your piece of writing, review and revise it. Review and revise. These are the words that we use when we want our students to read their work for mistakes, right? When they want the students to read their work for errors. Proofread is way less used in the context of learning to write. Proofread, especially at lower levels. At higher levels, yes, we can use the word proofread more often. In particular when we focus on language errors. But review and revise are more often used because they are not only focused on the language, they are also focused on the structure of writing and on the ideas in writing. So review and revise your work before you hand it in. Even though at higher levels, or if you only mean language errors, you can of course say proofread your work before you hand it in. And we teach our students special proofreading techniques for writing. Listening. Listen and check, listen and write, listen and say the letter, listen and join, right? That's another type of instruction for matching, right? Listen and join. Listen and order, listen and do the actions, listen and match, listen again, choose the right words, choose the right words and alternative to choose the right answer. Actually with choose the right answer, I have one problem, and that is that, you know, in language very often we have several answers that might be right in a certain context. That's why personally, instead of using the instruction choose the right answer, very often I would give the instruction choose the best answer. Because we can discuss why this answer is better than the other answers, but it can be very difficult to persuade a teenager that what they are suggesting is incorrect. And in language, you know, we can find a context for almost anything. listen and tick the box. Listen and complete the sentences. Listen to the questions. In which of them does the intonation go up at the end? Draw your attention to the fact that it's at the end, one of the most common errors in teachers' speech. Listen to two people talking about extreme sports and complete the table. Listen again, right? That's the instruction for the task when we have to listen to something again. Write notes about these things. Then compare your notes with a partner and listen to 3 dialects in a shop. Match the customers, and here 1 to 3. If we had no brackets in here, it would be match customers 1 to 3. But because 1 to 3 is in brackets here, it's the customers with the situations A to D. Once again, if we had no brackets in here, it would have been with situations A to D. There is one extra situation. Why am I focusing on language this much? Just like I said, because for me one of the main challenges is to formulate instructions. Maybe it's different for you, but from my experience of working with trainee teachers, it's also a very challenging element for them. And I thought for you, having a list of phrases somewhere might be very handy, because you can just copy and paste it into your tasks and focus on the more content-based elements of the task. Focus on input, focus on visuals. So I thought it would be handy. Sorry if you find it less useful than I thought you would. Speaking. Speaking is the wordiest task rubric genre, because according to our research, both in books designed by non-native speakers of English and in the books designed by the native speakers of English, the task rubrics that involve speaking have the most words. So here are some examples. Look at the form below and prepare to give this information about your friend. This is when we have certain questions. Work in pairs, ask and answer questions. I think there is a typo there. It must be questions. And then compare the information. I'll correct this typo right away. Think about an older person, a friend, or a member of your family who is alive and who you know well. Prepare to answer the questions below about their life and to tell your partner any other interesting information about them. Interview your partner about his or her person, ask for more information. Do you people have anything in common? Do you have anything in common is a very common, sorry about this, tautology, is a very common type of a speaking task rubric. Discuss the photos and extracts, follow the stages below, tell the class one thing you agreed on. Present your conclusions to the class, give reasons for your decisions. Read the list of statements. Which do you agree with? Give reasons. Imagine you are a tourist in London. Act out 3 role plays. Right? Act out is another way of giving a speaking instruction. And vocabulary and grammar. Complete the sentences. Use the words in brackets to make a new word. All the new words are in the text. Replace the words in italics with the words below in the correct form. Choose the most suitable answer. Choose the most suitable answer, as I said. Another way to avoid this, the right answer bit. What verbs 1 to 6 often go with the nouns below? Copy the table and write opposites of these adjectives in the correct column. Write the words and phrase in the correct places of the mind map. Write as many go plus ing activities as you can. Cross out the incorrect collocation in each list below. Make a list of as many kinds of media as you know. Put these words in alphabetical order. Read the theory box. Form adjectives. And yeah, please do focus that we do not use any article before alphabetical order. Another very common error. Read the theory box, form adjectives from the words in brackets to compare sentences. Form compound adjectives from the following words, so keyword here, form. Use your dictionaries to explain the phrases in bold. So we had italics. In bold is another type of highlighting of the text. Which of the following phrase can we use to express agreement, disagreement, and so on and so forth? Now, here I have 5 different task rubrics. I'll now give you a time limit of 5 minutes. I want you to read the task rubrics and improve them. Can you please write the 5 rubrics into the chat in a way that you think they would look better? So improve the task rubrics, correct them where you think they must be corrected, and write your final task rubrics into the chat. And then we are going to discuss your task rubrics together. I'm going to set a 5-minute time limit right now. I'll ask Dmitry to turn on some nice music for you guys while you're waiting. So here is the egg timer. The thing you're gonna see now on your screens is called egg timer. So, oh no, not 45 seconds. Clear. 5 minutes is the time limit. We are going to start now. Please reformulate the 5 task rubrics in front of you. Okay, good. Let's look at the phrases. All of those phrases were designed by my trainee students of English at Moscow University. All of them are studying to become English language teachers. And when they design their own tasks, these are the mistakes that they made. The first one, as mostly all of you have correctly pointed out, choose the right answer is the way to reformulate it, right? Choose the most suitable answer, choose the right answer. Read the essay and assess it, we need a comma here, using the assessment criteria given below. Provide the students with metalinguistic written corrective feedback and mark or grade the work, right? This is what the student meant, right? When we give points for the work, we mark the work or grade the work. Remember that whenever we use the word check, check is a yes or no procedure. Check is about right or wrong. Marking or grading is when we give this work a certain grade. And if you would like to know what metalinguistic written corrective feedback is, join in tomorrow where a colleague of mine, Tatiana from Higher School of Economics, is going to talk about about written corrective feedback and metalinguistic written corrective feedback in particular. And this can bring overall written corrective feedback is about how you read and grade students' written work, so essays, letters, any kind of writing that they produce. And if you want to know what it is like and how this can be done at a completely different level, join in tomorrow at the same time. You'll find out how many ways of assessing written work there exist, and I guarantee that if you go through the 2 webinars with her on assessment of written work, you will be at a completely different level of assessing writing. And by the way, if you already know what metalinguistic written corrective feedback is, then write it in the chat. We'll see if by any chance there is anybody who is already familiar with metalinguistic written corrective feedback. How can you stop an activity in the classroom? It's always the classroom whenever we refer to our classrooms. Name at least one acceptable way or one acceptable strategy. That's what the student thought about when they were writing this particular instruction. You're going to read descriptions of 5 tasks that your students must complete. In the previous one, are supposed to is wrong here, because when I'm supposed to do something, it somehow implies that I'm not doing it. For example, I am supposed to give you the right answers. It means that I'm not planning to give you the right answer. So if I use this in a sentence like I'm supposed to give you the right answers, but I won't, right? So supposed to somehow presupposes that that this is not happening. And write a phrase which can be used to express your disappointment. Indignation was too strong a word. In the classroom again. So those minor linguistic things might seem unimportant to us now when we're discussing it, but they might seem important to your students and their parents if they see it. And overall, all of us know that it's very painful to make linguistic errors in front of our students. So let's try and avoid it. If anyone else knows about metalinguistic feedback, write it in the chat. And yeah, how can we stop an activity in the classroom? We most usually don't say the time is over. Say time's up, right? The activity is over. That's how we do this. All right. And one more. One more short activity for you guys. I hope you haven't seen what I've just done. If you have, please do not rewind and try to focus at least on number 2 and number 3 on your own. Once again, look at the task rubrics and try to improve them. Try to improve the task rubrics. I'll set a time limit again, 3 minutes this time. I'll read the task rubric. What types of activities are convenient in the working process in pairs? Listen carefully to a woman speaking and decide what she's talking about. Answer the questions. Try to remember as much as possible of what she says, as you will have to write a summary of her story at the end of the lesson. And write phrases that you would use in the following situations. You are free to invent the information where necessary. Remember to use different forms of command and request in your instructions. So 3 minutes for you to improve the task rubrics. Suggest improvements or suggest at least what's wrong with the existing task rubrics. All of them can be improved. Time's up. Okay, let's look at them together. The first one, most of you were right while saying that the word convenient is very inconvenient in here. Instead, we can use the word what types of activities can be used, or what types of activities do we use, or are good. Good would be a much better word in here. And we don't have any goal of making task rubrics complicated. The simpler and the more straightforward, the better. For group work, the working process is definitely interference with the Russian language. For group work or for pair work. I have a problem with the word decide here. let's make a mental note now. I will tell you why I have a problem with the word decide in here later when we finish discussing linguistic points. Using short forms in task rubrics is also a very questionable point, because short forms, contractions, are used when in informal communication, and task rubric is a pretty formal genre. And this is in huge contrast to as you will have to write a summary. Very clumsy, very long. You can shorten it just to try to remember as much as possible of what she says to write a summary. Right? And here I have a problem with invent the information. You can use add information instead. That'd be linguistically better, shorter, and more natural. Now, as I said, I have a problem with the word decide in here because, okay, I have listened to a woman and I have decided what she's talking about. Now, what is the task? I have decided. How do you know that I have decided what she's talking about? Do I need to write it? If I have to write it in how many words? How do I show you that I have decided? How can you assess it? And how can I assess that I have decided correctly? Instead of using words like decide, I would recommend using words from Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is research that is around 50 years old right now, and one of the most useful things from Bloom's taxonomy is that it offers a list of thinking verbs that are way more applicable in the teaching context. For example, instead of knowing something, we can check whether we can assess how well a person knows something by asking them to define something, to identify something, to describe something, to recognize, to tell, to explain, and so on and so forth. Understanding can be checked through summary, interpretation, classification, comparison, application by solving, changing, transferring some information, analysis by comparing, contrasting, connecting, and so on and so forth. You'll have the list in the presentation. This is a list of task rubric words for you guys. Whenever you need to design an effective task rubric, just go to Bloom's taxonomy and find the right word that suits your task. I think this can be, I personally find it really useful. And I also use Bloom's taxonomy whenever I have to formulate expected learning outcomes. Because this is how I can know that people have learned something. Now finally, I would like to do the last activity with you. The one that I've already done in my accuracy training, I think. But now, as we have spoken about instructions and as we have spoken about task rubrics, this task combines elements of task rubrics, elements of classroom instructions, numbered as 1, 2, and 3, and elements of task rubrics, numbered 4, 5, and 6. Could you please write your ideas for instructions and for task rubrics? So once again, instructions, what you say in the classroom, task rubrics is what you write in the books. Can you please translate the following instructions and task rubrics from the Russian language into the English language and write them into the chat? And this will be the last activity for us today. I'm setting a timer to 5 minutes, and in 5 minutes we are going to look at your translations and discuss them. The egg timer, one more time. Ready, set, go. minute left. And it's time. Okay. The first one, could you go back to your seat, please? Remember, it's very good that so many of you, Victoria, Ludmila, many other people, managed to remember about this polite way of giving instructions with can you or could you. Really good. Xen as well. Good that you remembered about that. And Arena, could you go back to your seat, please? Right? Let's be polite. Can you copy the words into your notebooks? Now the question whether it's notebooks or exercise books is up to your classroom setting. If they take notes, there is more of notebooks. If you have exercises in these books, these are more of exercise books. Main thing, I would avoid using the word copybooks, because copybook is a Victorian word. Back then people had text that they would copy, and the places where they would, the books for copying those texts were called copybooks. So the word is not that widely used anymore. Use the word notebook. You can also use the words activity books or exercise books, of course. Could you please stop distracting Dima? Disturb would be a little too strong a word for me, so I would use the word distract in here. And once again, can you or could you or will you, if that's really strong, well, will you please stop disturbing or distracting Dima? Act out the dialects following the example. So many of you managed to put it right the way it was in the original book, as in the example is also fine, I think. Read the statements. Say if they are true or false. Remember, if you make one sentence out of it, it's read the statements to say if they are true or false, or not to say are they true or false. That'd be grammatically incorrect. So word order in indirect questions and indirect task forms is, according to our research, one of the most common errors, and that's understandable because that's also interference with our mother tongue. So specifically focus on that. Read the statements and say if they are normal word order, true or false. And then the last one, listen to the text and read an extract from Kadi's letter. Guess what questions Dasha asked her. Right, once again, indirect form, guess what questions Dasha asks her. Word order as in a statement. Okay guys, I hope all of this makes you feel confident now that you can design your own task, you have the necessary materials to write task rubrics, and as no one of you has written what meta-linguistic written corrective feedback is, I still think that the webinar tomorrow is going to be interesting to most of you. You have earned the 4-star right in here, and as a practice task that I would like to offer you at home, revisit the tasks that you have, that you regularly use during the year, and think whether you can improve the task characteristics such as input or stimulus or the task rubric itself, whether you can give an example, and use some of the phrases that I've given to you today in order to make the instructions more explicit if you need it, or to shorten them if they have to be shortened. Thank you very much for being with me here. and thank you very much for having watched the 4 webinars that I conducted right before the start of the next academic year. I wish you a very productive and a very nice academic year. I'm sure that 2019 and 2020 will be a very interesting year for us all, and I hope that the information and the skills that you have hopefully acquired throughout the 4 webinars that I have conducted will help you to have a completely new, a more interesting and a more productive year. Thank you very much and good luck.